With that, welcome to Inside this edition of Big Ten Today, presented by CDW. Rick Pizzo, joined by the hardest working man in sports television, Rafael Davis, after a double dip on Wednesday night that I don't think was necessarily surprising in terms of the final results, though the way that Iowa played in the second half definitely opened some eyes.
Yeah, for sure. The Hawkeyes, they are not dead yet.
Yep.
They may not be headed to the NCAA tournament, but you can see the passion in Coach Fran McCaffery's eyes after that win, that these guys are playing for something. These guys are playing for pride, and he really showed in that second half. Payne Sanford, he was big time.
Well, let's start there because it is our big story. Iowa was on the road looking to do something it had not done in conference play, pick up a Big Ten win away from Carver Hawkeye. Iowa scored 51 in the second half, fueled by Josh Dix and Payton Sanford. They combined to go for 46 points. And just like Rafael said, this team has not given up, even without Owen Freeman. Fran McCaffery, emotional postgame and talking about the win with Andy Katz.
What a gutsy road win, your first road win of the season. How do you describe it?
You know, there's times in your career where you're just really proud of your team. The way we fought is really impressive.
You're getting emotional. Tell me what is making you so emotional right now.
You know, we have had injuries. We've had some setbacks. So do other teams, Andy. I mean, you know that. Other teams have it. But it's how you respond. How do you respond in practice? How do you respond in meetings? Do you try to carry out the game plan? Do you stay together? Do you stay focused? And that's, at the end of the day, that's all we can ever ask.
What have you guys been going through?
I mean, it's tough. You know, losing sucks. This league's a grind. You look at the schedule and, you know, you're playing a team that's near the bottom of the league with two of the best players in America who are going to be top 3 picks. So, you know, there's fighters, you know, guys are dealing with injuries and heartaches. And, you know, the way that everybody stepped up tonight, we made plays. I think you could see the emotion everybody had in that win. And, you know, like I said, that's a culture win. Shout out to the coaches. Shout out to the leadership we have in the locker room. That's big time.
No doubt, emotion's the buzzword. And I know some folks may be asking, why is Fran McCaffery getting broken up? It's early February. His team's unlikely to make the NCAA tournament. But this is not the year that they anticipated.
Yep.
They did not anticipate Owen Freeman on the bench, all the injuries they've had to deal with. I'm sure that this team, assembled as it was, believed it was ready for the NCAA tournament. Even at this point, though, I think the emotions came out, Rafael, because clearly they showed, A, they haven't given up, and B, if they play, especially offensively, the way they played in the second half, no one wants to see this team in a one-loss-and-go-home situation like we have in Indianapolis.
Exactly. You see a team like Iowa that can score the ball at will at times. They are going to make noise in the Big Ten tournament, but they got to get there. You have to get to the Big Ten tournament, and I think they're putting themselves in position because they still care. I've been on teams in this league. I go back to 2014 while I was at Purdue. We weren't making a tournament. We knew we were not making a tournament, and we're headed to play Wisconsin. We're going on the road. We had our point guard on the back of the bus making his spring break plans because he had already sold the season in. And he was making those plans with another Indiana player from IU. He wasn't making a tournament.
It's going from bad to worse now.
They're making plans on the back of our bus before a game because they knew we weren't making a tournament. That's why this matters so much, because you could quit. And I love what Coach McCaffery said. How do you respond? How do you respond in meetings? How do you respond in practice? But how do you respond at halftime when you're down 9 on the road, no Owen Freeman, no Drew Thelwell? Where do you go? And this team came out in that second half and they fought. Yeah, they scored their 51 points, 59% from the field, but the defense was just as impressive. Josh Dix goes crazy, 16 of his 26 coming after the break in the second half. They take care of the basketball, they take care of the glass, and then they hold Rutgers to 31 points on 42% from the field. Just a big-time effort by the Hawkeyes. I love the effort. I love the grit. I love the edge they played with.
I hope the year that Josh Dix is having and the potential that he has is not lost in what's been a little bit of an up-and-down season for the Hawkeyes. Because I watched this young man, Rafael, and I have seen him get better each and every year, and I don't think he scratched the surface of how good he can be.
No, he came in as a shooter, as a guy that can make shots from the outside. But at this point, Josh Dix is a hooper.
Yes.
Josh Dix just knows how to play the game. He can get downhill, has a great handle, not afraid to knock down a mid-range, rather it be simple off of one dribble, rather be a step back, get into his spot. he has been sensational. And then you know he's a dead-eye shooter from the three-point land. Josh Dix has to be one of the more underappreciated guards that we have in this league. He is probably, if you look at the two guards around the conference, he's right there with Bryce Williams as one of the better ones.
I agree.
He can put that thing in the bucket, and he's not scared to guard you. He got into Dylan Harper. He got into Ace Bailey. Josh Dix gave Rutgers everything they wanted and a little bit more.
Harper, Bailey, heard Peyton Sanford talk about the fact that this is a monster win for Iowa. You go and do it in a tough place to play at Jersey Mike's. You do it against two guys who are expected to go in the top three of this spring's NBA draft. And with all that talent, I think more was expected from a team perspective at a Rutgers so far this year. But Steve Pikiell, despite all these struggles, he's not ready to throw in the towel quite yet.
6 games left. We still got a lot of basketball to play. So, everyone's kind of bunched up in our league. There's only a difference between a game or two between everybody. We got to go on the road. Obviously, we got to play better and win some games, but we still have chances. There's a lot of quad one wins still out there for us, and we've been right there. We've been right there. So we're going to keep grinding. That's what we've always done here, and every year something's stacked against us, and we've always kind of figured out a way. So we got to figure out a way this year too.
Here is a graphic backing up exactly what Steve Pikiell said. The schedule is a challenge, but that also means you have quad one opportunities, like a road trip to Oregon, like a game against USC, like a road trip that includes stops in Ann Arbor and West Lafayette in late February and early March. Now, those are certainly not games that Rutgers is going to be in any way, shape, or form favored in, but they are games, especially on the road, that if you're able to find a way to win, it completely changes the trajectory of where your postseason will be, if the postseason will exist in any way, shape, or form. But I think at this point, it comes down to Coach Pikiell and the staff, because you have two guys who you could not blame, Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, if they're starting to think about June and starting to look toward that NBA draft. We talk about it incessantly. He and that staff have to find a way to keep this team together over the final month of the Big Ten season.
Oh, yeah. It would be easy for Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey to start thinking about those pre-draft workouts, start thinking about all that money they're finna start getting and whatnot. But I love what Rutgers have been able to do. That first half against Iowa, that was the Rutgers that we thought we were getting this season. And Ace and Dylan, they're sitting on the bench in foul trouble. But you got great production from Tyson Acuff, gave you 12 points in the first half. Jeremiah Williams was the senior leader that we expected him to be all season long, but it was just the first half. Even Zach Martini, he knocks down 2 threes. So you see the production from the other guys when those guys are sitting on the pine in that first half. But in that second half, you could see it. When Rutgers came back onto the floor to warm up, they weren't focused. They thought they won that game. And it's easy when you're a young squad. I've been around real talented freshmen, talented dudes. You're up 9. You're playing one of the teams at the bottom of the league. You're at home. You're feeling good. Ace and Dylan hadn't played their best basketball, and they're still winning that game. But they came out, they got punched in the mouth. And Iowa threw the punches, and they kept throwing them and never let up. And Rutgers never got back into that game after the first 4 minutes of the second half. The other guys showed up, but you need Dylan, you need Ace to be at their best, because you look at it. You go to Oregon, you go to Michigan, you go to Purdue, you're still going to have the 2 best players on the floor in all of those games. You need those 2 guys to be studs, but you need – who would you say?
Braden Smith might have something to say.
Dylan Harper a little bit better than Braden Smith.
Going to be in the NBA, yes.
Right now.
If I give you one guy right now to win one game in the Big Ten against one of the best teams in the country, you're telling me you're taking Harper with the ball in his hands over Braden Smith?
Are they both playing for Purdue? What Purdue has around them?
It's a legitimate question.
That's what I mean. It depends on who you have around you, who's the coach, where you're playing.
Fair.
But if I'm going with Dylan Harper, and I have a Trey Kaufman-Wren, and I have a Fletcher Lawyer, and I have a C.J. Cox and a Caleb First.
You got Dylan Harper drooling right now, by the way. If he's watching, he's saying, if, yes, give me that, Rafa. We could have this discussion for another 50, 55 minutes if you want, but then we'd run over our allotted time. There was another game on Wednesday night, and it went pretty much according to plan as Ohio State took care of business against Washington. John Mobley Jr., Micah Parrish. I mean, these guys, they can shoot, they can score. I think the ascendance of Parrish completely makes Ohio State a different team than it was back in November. And even back in November, they picked up a couple of big wins. Those guys combined for 42. Ohio State wins it 93-69. Jake Diebler's squad has become a very deep, very well-rounded team. You can take away one guy here, one guy there.
Yep.
They have a lot of pieces that can beat you in a lot of ways.
Man, you're starting to see it come into form right now. Guards make you go in college basketball.
Yeah.
We say it all the time. And you look at Ohio State's backcourt, it's right there with the top of the backcourts in the Big Ten. 3 different guys do 3 different things. Bruce Thornton can get downhill. He's going to make big shots. He's going to control the tempo of the game. Junie Mobley, he may be the best shooter that we've seen coming to the conference as a freshman. I think if John Mobley Jr., if he stays 4 years at Ohio State, I seriously think that he can go down as not just one of the best shooters in the Big Ten, but one of the best shooters to ever play college basketball. Every time he shoots that thing, I think it's going in. But the development of Micah Parrish over the last 5 games has been truly impressive, averaging over 18 points a game, getting to the basket, knocking down shots from deep, really controlling the flow on the offensive end. And then he's a high IQ basketball player. You saw him in that first half against Washington, had a wide open jumper. It was wide open. He pumped it, drew the defense, hit John Mobley in the corner, and Mobley knocks it down. When you have 3 guards that can score the ball this way at this rate, knock it down from deep, all 3 of them, that gives you a chance. And then the development of Aaron Bradshaw, Sean Stewart, Devin Royal inside, that has been big time for the Buckeyes.
That's what I mean. Royal's the last guy you just mentioned. Remember,
Yep.
he went for 31 just
Yep.
a couple of weeks ago in Big Ten play. I know Jake Diebler loves this team. It's a team part of whom got to enjoy some postseason success last year in that run at the Big Ten tournament after he took over on the interim basis and then was named the head coach. Jake Diebler's got something cooking. Ohio State, another one of those teams, not sure anybody wants to play right now. You want to be playing your best in February and March, and that's exactly what's happening for the Scarlet and Gray.
It's hard to say what the game of the year in Big Ten women's basketball is. There have been so many, but this is one of them.
The crosstown showdown, a lot of great players on both sides, a lot of respect for one another, but a lot of heat in it too, which is great, and that's not going anywhere.
I think it's one of the top 5 rivalries probably in college sports.
There's just not much that we have to say or do. We just know that we don't really like each other. So I mean, it's just like a set rivalry.
Crosstown rivalry, it's always fun. So much energy in the building from the stands, but also from the players.
It's a takeaway. Juju with 1 second, she got it off to give USC the lead.
UCLA putting on a clinic.
Women's basketball in LA has really skyrocketed. The talent that you have at both schools, UCLA and SC, is just really incredible.
Again, another double-digit victory for the UCLA bunch. Unbelievable.
I think we're both very confident in what we do and who we are, and I think that it just goes to show on the court. You're going to see a lot of back and forth and a lot of really good plays.
Area Fenn attacks, has 2 on her, doesn't matter.
In LA, I think we kind of buy into that Showtime Lakers mentality. We want to give people a show. We want to have fun while we're doing it.
This is not about just a great matchup. This is about everybody seeing Southern California as a basketball mecca.
Why not? Got it.
I mean, how do you stop that?
It's going to be such a fun game, and I really hope that people can watch just because the level is going to be so high.
Our big stat presented by CDW, proving exactly what Corey Close was saying. This is one of the best rivalries in all of college sports, not just women's basketball. And look at the matchup this year. A combined 44-2 overall, 22-2 in the Big Ten, 11-0 against ranked opposition. Obviously, one of these teams suffers its first ranked loss of the year on Thursday night. As for the other head coach, let's get to know Lindsay Gottlieb as we enjoy a little bit of her on and off the court life, thanks to this edition of On the Court.
From like 6:30 to 8:30 is this like crazy time, but it's my time with the kids because I'm gone for a lot of the day, and so it's something that no matter how tired I am, I love it. Now this one. Guppy time. My husband Patrick is a CFO of a company that's based out of the Bay Area, and he He works from home and does a lot of basketball analytics on the side. He thinks he's on the staff. He's not. Our son Jordan is 7 and in 2nd grade.
Who's better? Who's better all time, right?
Candace Parker or Diana Taurasi?
He gives these impossible questions. How am I supposed to answer that?
We're in LA. Now he's this savant that knows probably more Big Ten women's basketball players than I do. Our daughter Reese, as she started to talk and there were things, mumbling coming out, all of a sudden we heard her saying Juju.
Juju.
She was literally pregnant when she was recruiting. I just remember committing and she was like, oh my God, my water's about to break.
How big? It's one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't want you to cry on the TV show when I beat you. Good shot.
Easy. Brick.
What? What?
She's being pulled in a lot of directions, but I think she shows up for every single commitment that she has 100% herself, and you wouldn't know all that she has going on.
The common thread is it's the family dynamic. As a mom, you would do anything for your kids, for your family. That's her mentality as a coach.
We also have a ton of childcare. Sometimes someone else has to take on making the breakfast or getting them fully ready, and I'm knocking out a practice plan or watching the end of film. As much as I can, I'll drive our son to school. It's kind of on the way to USC.
Okay, Celtics, ready to go. You go first.
Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Paul Pierce.
Good. But what? Derek White, why are you trying to give me some?
She has our 2 kids at home and then 15 others that she has to look after. So she's really just a super mom. She's honestly the GOAT. She's literally coached at all levels of basketball. So for her to have that insight and experience, it really just validates how intelligent she is.
I was coaching women's college basketball for over 20 years. Then I had an opportunity to go to the NBA. So we made the leap and went to Cleveland and was there for about 2.5 years when the USC job opportunity came up. I felt like, with everything I'd learned at the NBA, the USC would be the perfect job opportunity to go back to women's college basketball. I've really shifted kind of my philosophies basketball-wise that has served me really well at USC. Just more pace, more spacing, more flexibility and kind of positionless play, teaching people skill sets that will help them be pros. Women or men, not a lot of difference. It's elite, versus not. Go, 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 put it down, go, go, go! Drop the ball, go!
It's taken a little time for that to take hold because you also need the type of players that are comfortable playing that way.
Watkins ahead, full head of steam, into the paint, lays it up, it rolls in!
She's allowed her players to kind of have freedom and allow us to kind of make mistakes, not too many.
My part in the build of it, the rebuild, is really minimally me. It's my ability to connect with people and let them be who they are.
I want to focus on how fast that ball's moving, what our percentages are, how we're doing defensively, and everybody 100% of the time needs to be mission focused to how do we get better today.
Coach was definitely what USC needed. I probably wouldn't have went there if she wasn't there, just because she was just such a strong kind of force in my decision.
Let them curl out and you play a 2-man with Kiki. Let them go and just toss it to her and go.
I got you, Coach.
If I've done anything, it's set a vision and hopefully inspire people to believe in that vision and do what they do best and allow them to shine in those roles, and that's what's happened.
1, 2, 3, Juicy!
Great insight there on the life of USC head coach Lindsey Gottlieb. Rick Pizzo back with Rafael Davis, who is trying to convince us that he never played in a game of this magnitude against an in-state rival, though to be fair, very few have. These are 2 of the best teams, not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. They'll meet today in the Battle of LA. But you did have games during your career against Indiana when both you and the Hoosiers were really solid. What's the feeling like going in? What's the feeling like coming out, depending on the result?
Ooh, going into it, you got a big-time feeling. Because I can remember going into that Indiana game, especially even as a freshman, when they were really good and we were just okay, we would get calls from the alumni. You get calls from Glenn Robinson. You hear from Conzo Martin. You hear from guys like the Three Amigos and telling you how important this game is on the floor. Records go out of the window. I know these are 2 top 6 teams, but that means nothing. These guys are going to have to go at it. And you think about it, whether you go on the road or when you're at home. I can remember going to Mackey Arena, the paint crew. They're already sleeping outside the day before. We're bringing them pizza. They're cheering for us just walking into the gym. But you go on the road. You go to Indiana.
Different animal.
We get there the day early. They're booing us coming into town. They're at our hotel waiting for us. It's a big-time environment, big-time game. You win this game, the pizza after tastes so much better. That bus ride home feels so good, but you lose it. Oh, man, I can remember going to Indiana my senior season. We felt like we should have won that game. We lost it at the end. It was a quiet bus ride, 2 hours home, stopped and got McDonald's because that's what we deserved at that time. But you playing this type of game, it's huge. Both teams are top 6. Both have 2 players that could be the player of the year in the country. You look at Juju, she's got to go out there and prove that, no, this is my deal. I'm the best player in the country. But if I'm Lauren Betts and I'm in that locker room.
Lauren Betts is a baller.
Exactly. I feel like I should be the national player of the year. It's so much that goes into this game. 2 great coaches, 2 great programs. It should be a big-time night.
UCLA, this has been an unbelievable run to be unbeaten throughout the Big Ten. Of course, the win earlier in the year against South Carolina, the highlight, but they have looked really good in conference play as well. Hummel wasn't among that group of alums to call you?
No, I never heard from Rob.
No, that's funny. And if you did, who dis? Wrong number, prank caller. All right, we have more from Rayfel coming up. Big Ten hockey's 3 stars from last year. Arseniy Sergeyev of Penn State, goaltender, had a terrific weekend, stopped 66 out of 68 shots in a weekend sweep of Wisconsin. Another terrific goaltending performance by Ohio State's Logan Terness. He stopped 68 of 70 as the Buckeyes also got a sweep. And in that Penn State sweep, Reese Lawback had both game-winning goals for the Nittany Lions over the course of the weekend. Now, that was the week that was. Leading into this weekend, you see the matchups on Friday and Saturday night. All of these games on Friday can be seen on Big Ten Plus. We have a doubleheader here on the network on Saturday night starting at 6 Eastern with Minnesota and Michigan, followed by Wisconsin and Ohio State, which means you'll see 3 of the country's top 12. Also means welcoming Paul Caponigri for more on the week coming up in Big Ten hockey. And we're starting to see a little bit of change, obviously, with Penn State and Wisconsin. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the 3 teams that are at the top and have been at the top now for a long time, staying inside that top 10, it really looks like the league is set up again to make a run, maybe with multiple teams toward the Frozen Four this year in St. Louis in mid-April.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked about it the last couple of years, how the league is kind of where we thought it would be now. I mean, the teams are kind of changing. But you look at I look at what we're going to talk about, Michigan and Minnesota. Michigan is kind of this team. They've had the hardest schedule in the country, and they're just really hard to predict. But Minnesota and Michigan State have just been rocks. And then Ohio State, the team that was picked to finish last, by the way, by most people, you know, they're the surprise. They're a rock-solid third.
They look like amazing now to make the NCAA tournament. Not very many people thought that.
I love when there's unpredictability.
Hockey,
I swear, has got to be the most. I mean, every sport has it, but hockey just seems to have a team every year that someone thinks they're going to be bad, and they rise to the top.
Well, you brought up Michigan, remarkably talented team. They have played one of the nation's toughest schedule. They've been beset by some injuries throughout the course of the year. If there are 2 more talented teams in the nation and in the Big Ten, they are Michigan State, and they are the team that Michigan will face this weekend in Minnesota because Bob Motzko just reloads with talent. Obviously can stay mainly in state, but go out of state as well. This Minnesota team, they've been inside the top 5 for most of the nation. We know they can score. I think the goaltending, there was a question coming in, has been solid. This should be a really, I think, a telling weekend series for both teams, depending on how it goes. It's at Yost in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think this is way more important in terms of maybe standings and then pairwise, which you might hit on later for national tournament for Michigan.
Of course.
I mean, because Minnesota, look, they want to win the Big Ten. They want to win all their games. But their number one goal that Bob Motzko was brought there to do was win the national championship. They've been very close many times. And you hit on the goaltending. It's been good, but I think they're so good in front of them. I don't know if they're that confident that they have the guy in that game that can make that big save for sure. Liam Solier has done a good job. He came and he swept Wisconsin. He played both games. It was the first time he did that all season 2 weeks ago, but Nathan Erie was sick. Are they going to go back to the every other night thing?
Most coaches would like to be able to rely on one goaltender, especially when you get into tournament time.
Especially, when you're in the NCAA tournament, do you stay on that rotation when it's
really
this
hard.
Is the biggest game of the year, and then the next game is the biggest game of the year, and do you stay with that guy? What kind of game did he have? Did you win a 2-1 game? Did you win a 6-5 game? So, I mean, there's a lot of variables, but with Minnesota, it's all about being their best March, April, and for Michigan this weekend is they got to get one at least because they're right on that bubble. This year there's going to be three one-bid conferences, so that drops it to 13, which they're at 12 right now. So you do the math on that. Very slippery slope, but their schedule was so difficult. I think it's going to keep them right there, but they got to get wins. They can't get swept.
Yeah, strength of schedule, strength of wins, all plays into the pairwise, the computerized program that basically sets the NCAA tournament. And Cappy mentioned those one-bid leagues. There are automatic bids for conferences.
Just like basketball,
so
there's the
you have
one-bid
to be better
leagues.
than just in the top 16 this year, as he mentioned, probably in the top 13. But before we leave this series, I mean, you look at Minnesota, you look at their top couple of lines. Offensively, there's just not many teams in the country that can match up with those top two lines. And when they go on the power play, it is just a thing of beauty to watch.
It is, and when you have a guy like Jimmy Snuggerud, right, like that comes back for his third year. I mean, he could have left after his freshman year, but he's decided to come back. Growth, maturity, more consistency in his game, I feel like. Yes, he's got all the points, but he's doing things. You're noticing him in all the games, whether he scores or not.
Player.
Smarter, I think you just mature, right? This game slows down for you. They bring in a transfer in Wood, who's been phenomenal for him, too. You got 91 and 81. He has a big two right-handed shot forwards. Oliver Moore. I mean, you can go down their lineup. Then Sam Renzel on the back end has elevated his game. So from 1 to 18, they're skaters. I don't think there's anyone that can touch them in the country, to be honest. It's where it'll crunch down in the goaltending for them in the long run. That's what we're going to talk about the next month and a half.
Yeah, no question about it. I think Oliver Moore, by the way, one of the more underrated players, maybe not just in our conference, but in the nation. He's just a point producer. And I know a lot of it when you play on a line with the guys he's been playing on.
I mean, his skating is just
so
ridiculous.
fast. Okay, you brought up Ohio State, your alma mater.
Yep.
And I just don't think we can give Steve Rollick enough credit. I know we have a lot this year. He's a terrific coach, but the job that he's done this year may be the best coaching job that he's done during his time in Columbus. And that's saying something because he's taken this program to places that it hadn't been in a very long time. They're at home this weekend against a Wisconsin, a Wisconsin team that has really been struggling as of late. And for Ohio State, for momentum, for the pairwise, for the Big Ten standings, I think you have to sweep or you have to get minimum 4 points this weekend at home against the Badgers.
Your goals, if you want to move up, and they really still have a shot at can pass Minnesota because they play Minnesota in a week, so they control their destiny. They're only 4 points behind them. I think you look at these two teams, these are two of the teams that brought in maybe the most higher profile transfer portal players. And it's just funny how one team immediately adapted right away, Ohio State, and look what they've done all year. Their top two scorers are transfer portal guys. Aiden Hansby-Cott on the back end, 20 points, has been back anchoring. And then Wisconsin has struggled a little bit. They struggled so much early in the season. They fought so hard to get back up there. I'm afraid maybe they ran out of gas a little bit because you put so much energy in fighting your way back. And Tommy Scarfoni and Nets kind of struggle a little bit. So I think it's a kind of a trap weekend, right? Because Ohio State goes into Notre Dame, they get their business done. They're feeling good. Wisconsin gets swept at home. Now they're going on the road. Ohio State's at home. You think, oh, okay, this is where Ohio State takes it over. You know, that's where hockey can get a little tricky. So I think Steve Rollick is going to have to be on his guys to stay focused because Mike Hastings at Wisconsin is not going to let his team quit.
Pretty well.
Yeah, and he's not going to let them quit. The season's not over for them. they've dropped probably now where they got to win the conference tournament, but I think maybe that takes some pressure off them.
Yeah.
You know, like you're so concentrated on watching yourself growing up in the standings that you forget sometimes. It takes some of your energy out, even when you're not playing hockey because you're thinking about it so much. So it'll be interesting to see how they react off a rough home weekend and how the Buckeyes had a great home.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes when you can play the what-if game because you look at Wisconsin, specifically against Michigan State.
Yeah.
They had leads, multi-goal leads in 3 of the 4 games against the number 2 team in the country and only won one of them.
Yeah.
Lost 2 of those games. The third game that they lost was never really much of a contest.
Yes.
But still, what-ifs for Wisconsin now outside the top 20 in the pairwise.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in just a little bit. But first, thoughts on the last series of the weekend.
Yeah.
It's Notre Dame and Penn State. It's been a struggle all year long for Notre Dame, and we kind of expected that.
And sad, too, in Jeff
Jackson's
Jackson's
little bit of transitions, Jeff Jackson's last year in South Bend. We left Penn State for dead about a month ago, and suddenly this is a team that if it has a huge February, is in contention to get back to the NCAA tournament for Guy Gadowski.
Yeah, they hold all their chips because now they have to take care of business this weekend. It's these you cannot. They're at a point where
it has to be a sweep.
They can't be like, we're hot, we'll just get it done. They have to get it done. Notre Dame they show little glimpses. That's what they struggle is that they can't consistently play a full 60 minutes. So Penn State, yes, has to get these 2, but their next 2 weekends are Michigan State and then home Minnesota. So those are games where they could definitely get a.
You jump way up in the pairwise.
Split, it jumps, but. I think their goaltending with Sergeyev and net is finally kind of settled down. They had the worst save percentage in the country last year.
And Sergeyev is the reigning first star of the week.
Yes, and he's just kind of, I think when any team gets good goaltending, it kind of gives everybody else confidence. You know that as a former goaltender.
Well, because you know you can make mistakes, you can take a couple of chances. And he's back there to bail you out.
And you also just have a more confidence going into the game. You think you're going to win the game. Everyone thinks they're going to win every game, but when your goalie's not backing you, you have his back, but if he's not stopping the puck, it's just going to frustrate you. It's just human nature. But he's given them confidence now, and they have a couple freshmen, Charlie Serrato and Weebush, that have elevated their games. And then they have Aiden Fink, who is definitely not having his sophomore slump. He's tied for second in the country with Jimmy Snuggerud in points. So, yeah, they're set up to have it. They're at home. They got to take care of this business against Notre Dame. It's easier said than done. The one thing for Notre Dame that's tough, too, is Cole Knuble might be out. He left the game against Ohio State Saturday, their top player. If he's not playing,
really anything they
it
can
doesn't
afford.
help. But they're going to fight. So it's something that Penn State has to concentrate. But it is a remarkable. This year they hadn't won a game in conference, but they lost one in non-conference. It had kind of been their MO the last couple of years. They'll win all their non-conference games. They just hadn't put it together in Big Ten play, but they have recently now. And then now they're talking about maybe getting a home playoff spot.
Crazy.
They're not that far from Michigan for that 4th spot.
But the schedule, as you mentioned, after this weekend, awfully tough. Challenges also means opportunities.
There you go.
More pucks still to come here on Big Ten Today.
Charlie Green came to Lincoln initially with one job: run fast. The Seattle native certainly did, as he won 6 national championships from 1965 through 67 in the 60-yard and 100-yard dash. Green also set the 100-meter world record twice in the 1968 AAU championships and won 2 Olympic medals in the 1968 Games in Mexico City, becoming the first Husker to win an Olympic gold medal. Following his athletic career, he became a United States Army officer, serving as the sprint coach at West Point and head coach of the All-Army team. He spent 20 years in the Army, retiring as a major before becoming a director for Special Olympics International. He spent a lot of his retirement in Lincoln, training high school track and field athletes and volunteering for the Husker Life Skills program before passing away in 2022. Charlie Green, a U.S. Olympic Hall of Famer, and a big impact pioneer, class of 2025.
What a stage for college hockey here in downtown Detroit. Loose, it's in! The Spartans get another one! Here comes Shouty. Shouty takes a look, scores! Tiernan Shouty! Shout it out loud! There's Howard down low! Isaac Howard gets one on the power play. Spartans take the duel in the D. 6-1.
Man, Man, that was a big-time win by Michigan State. But as Cappy just said to me, you sensed it coming right after Michigan went to Munn and knocked off Michigan State earlier in the weekend. Now, that win has held Michigan State to 43 points. They're atop the Big Ten standings, but remember, the Spartans are idle this weekend. So Minnesota will play twice. Should the Gophers go to Ann Arbor and sweep Michigan this weekend, that means Minnesota actually would overtake Michigan State and have a 1-point lead in the Big Ten standings as we head down the final home stretch here of the regular season. Something to keep your eye on as well as the standings. The pairwise, just explain what this is, the computerized system that sets up the NCAA tournament at large bids. Michigan State, Minnesota, Ohio State, all comfortably in whether they do or do not get the league's automatic bid. Michigan has been teetering. Already discussed Penn State's chances. Wisconsin, Notre Dame, both those teams would have to win the Big Ten tournament to get the auto bid to play into the NCAAs. Let's talk about the one team that we won't see, though, this weekend, Michigan State. They have showed us everything, and they have everything. They have scoring. They have terrific defense. They have depth. They have arguably the best goaltender in the country in Trey Augustine. That's why I know you, like most hockey analysts that follow the college game, believe this team has every piece that it needs to get to St. Louis in the Frozen Four.
Yeah, and don't forget the coaching. I think Adam Nightingale, what he's done there in such a short time, his third season, it's just been a steady climb each year. And, every time I talk to him, you can just tell. And then you talk to his players, they all sound the same. And I think that's just really, he's built a really good environment there. You talk about culture, environment, but I truly think, especially when you're having success now, they sound the same as they did 2 years ago when they were, this up-and-coming team that you thought was going to be good. They sound exactly the same now, where they've been number one a lot of the year. They're number two right now. You mentioned all their things. And Trey Augustine, he doesn't have the best. He's not in the top 5 in save percentage or goals against. He's got great numbers. They're not elite, but he is known for playing big in the big game, and that is really what you want as a coach, as a team, as a staff, as a fan.
I just don't think there's a goaltender in the country that I would take over Trey Augustine if I had to win a game in the NCAA tournament.
Sure.
When you don't win, you go home.
Sure, and I think he has a mental edge on teams, too. I mean, you saw they played Minnesota a couple weeks ago and they had the shootout, and you're like, who's going to win this? It's going to be Michigan State because they have Trey Augustine. That Minnesota, and now they've had some struggles in shootouts, is documented. But going into it, they just had
shootouts in the NCAA tournament. That's the good news.
But I guess just the mental kind of edge he had before they even got to it. So I guess that's where it goes. And then they have Isaac Howard has elevated his game to, he's the leading scorer in the country. I don't think anyone saw that coming. So they have that go-to kind of offensive weapon player there. And then they have the depth there too. So they have all the pieces. We talked off air though. You get in the NCAA tournament, it is a one-shot deal. You could run into a hot goalie. Look, hey, last Friday night, Cam Corby played unbelievable for Michigan. They go into Munn and beat them 2-1. So yes, they have all the ingredients, but you just never know in the one. But that's where the coach comes into play and their mental and the culture. I just feel like they have the right mentality to go with all the talent they have.
Any concerns for Michigan State other than getting a bad draw in a regional at the NCAA tournament?
I just said the only concern is you run into that hot goalie that one day,
right, but every team
or
has
a bad
that. Every
bounce.
team has
right.
that concern.
So I think that I don't think there's a concern other than that. I mean, if they get to the one team that I think that is as good as, there are two teams, Minnesota and Michigan State and Boston College, that are on their level. When I look at how I've seen teams all year, they wouldn't face those teams till a Frozen Four. And then once you get there, it is the ultimate one-shot deal where everyone's going to be tough. So I just think it's just what happened. Like, they've lost a few games. Ohio State beat them a couple weeks ago. Riley Thompson just sat his butt in front of the net and made life, tough for Augustine. That's what you have to do. You have to get traffic in front of them. But that's easier said than done because you got to have the puck. And Michigan State doesn't give you the puck all the time.
Yeah,
so
you brought up.
There's just a lot of layers there.
You brought up the draws in the region. Should be interesting. I mean, Michigan State, Minnesota continue to play this way. They'll both be number 1 seeds. Michigan State most likely in Toledo. Minnesota most likely in Fargo. BC would be the number 1 at the New England site.
Yes.
And so then you don't have to mess with any of those teams until you get to St. Louis and the Frozen Four. I do want to touch on Ohio State because we mentioned in the last segment how good Steve Rollick's team has been this year.
Yeah.
They have been a bit surprising. Would you be surprised if they also ended up in St. Louis?
Not now. You watch a team have success that you weren't sure about before, and you're like, okay, when is the other ball going to drop? When are you going to see them fail, right? And they just haven't. Even when their goaltenders started to struggle, you had Everly in net. He wins goaltender of the month for December. And then he struggles in January. They go to Logan Turnus now, and you saw what he just did last weekend. He's a veteran guy. So they have a rare thing where they have two really great goalies. But I'd argue, other than Trey Augustine, almost any other Big Ten team, those guys would probably be number one goalies. So the fact that they have two guys like that, and then they have a go-to first line. When you have that is just a bonus, because say you're not doing well in a game or you're struggling offensively, you have a line that you could put out there, and then with Burnside and the two transfers, Thompson and Gunnar Wolf-Fontaine, the greatest name in college hockey, they kind of have that, like, okay, Rollick has that kind of, I can go to this line. We're struggling right now. This line can get us going. They hadn't had that last year, and they didn't know they were going to have it this year, and I think that's one of the big surprises and makes them a team to beat. The defense is always going to be there for a Coach Rollick team, but the goaltending and then having that top line is really kind of elevated.
I mean, we have seen some unbelievable top lines in this league, whether it was Minnesota the last couple of years. You go back to the CCM line of Michigan State.
Michigan,
Michigan, the Michigan State, the KHL line, I believe it was. Those guys were unbelievable. It's been really fun to watch the talent level. Last year was really fun at the Frozen Four. I hope we're back covering multiple teams this year. I have a feeling we will be.
And ironically, it is in St. Louis, the last place where a Big Ten team won
it all.
And
That's
it
right.
was the Michigan State Spartans in 2007. So
hard to believe.
We'll see.
It's been that long. Rick Comley's team did it. Kind of surprised some folks back in 2007.
Totally surprised them.
Yeah.
And then the Big Ten Network came around the next year, I think that
was.
Don't blame
it. Hey, we'll get there one day. Don't blame it on us.
I'm not worried about it.
All right, good stuff as always from Paul Caponigri. Turn our attention now from hockey to women's lacrosse, because Saturday, a monster day for that sport. Maryland takes on Syracuse in a top 10 showdown, and then #1 Boston College battles #2 Northwestern. Remember, that's a rematch of last year's national championship game when the Eagles made that unbelievable comeback. You can stream all the excitement live. Subscribe right now at BigTenPlus.com. Big Ten baseball preseason poll sees 3 of the newcomers mixing in with 3 teams that have dominated the league in recent years. Oregon, UCLA, and USC, joined by Nebraska, Indiana, and Michigan among the top 6. Oregon and Nebraska also receiving preseason top 25 votes. Recap Wednesday night in the world of Big Ten women's hoops. All Michigan State as the Spartans knock off Wisconsin by 20. Theron Halleck and Grace Van Sluten combining for 40 points for Michigan State. And meanwhile, our congratulations to Kim Barnes-Arico. Michigan wins, handing KBA her 279th victory as she passes our good friend John Beilein to become the winningest coach in Michigan basketball history. And of course, Coach B, always a class act, gave her a shout out on Sunday when she tied the record. Took to the Twitter machine on Wednesday night to offer his congratulations, as well as his record now belongs to Kim Barnes-Arico. The big board coming your way on Thursday. Another busy night in women's hoops. You see 4 ranked teams in action, including that nightcap between USC and UCLA on the men's side, Maryland and Nebraska. The only game, and you can see that as part of our men's-women's doubleheader. Both teams, both sides, 6:30 and 8:30 Eastern, respectively. Let's talk that Nebraska-Maryland game. 2 teams who I know you've been very high on at different points throughout the course of the year. Right now, both playing really good ball.
Oh, I've had this game circled on my calendar. I've been looking forward to it because you have the best scorer in the Big Ten in Bryce Williams, who is on a heater right now, averaging 26 points a game over the last 4. And they've all been dubs. He's been playing at a really high level. But tonight may be his toughest challenge yet, because I strongly believe that you look at a guy in Rodney Rice, I see him as one of the better perimeter defenders that we have in this conference. So that's going to be a big-time matchup. But what I'm really looking forward to seeing is what wins out. Juwan Gary, a utility 4-man, a junkyard dog, can drive it, can finish it, can knock down threes on the outside, but he's a perimeter player. And then on the other side, that matchup is Derek Queen, the sensational freshman.
Who guards Derek Queen for Nebraska? That's the question Fred Hoiberg has been dealing with ever since the second the last game ended.
Exactly. So you know that double team, it better be prepared.
Oh, it better be good.
Exactly. You better be ready to double every single time because you leave Derek Queen any space to see shooters. You got Selton Miguel, you got Riley Rice, you got Jacoby Gillespie. You got to make shots to beat Nebraska. I'm looking forward to see what wins out.
Sneaky good game, not just in the Big Ten, but nationally Thursday night here on the Big Ten Network. For Rafael Davis and Paul Caponigri, I'm Rick Pizzo. Thanks for the hang here on Big Ten Today.